And we'll start this one. Let's see. So we are on with YouTube, and Facebook is live, Twitter, and Instagram. Everyone's live. Hey, everyone. Glad that you could join us. My name is Darren Fink, and with me is the lovely
Margie Fink.
And we're with Transfiguring Adoption. Welcome to another Monday Caregiver Check-In. This is every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We come on here and we just check in, and all of us, we ask caregivers, professionals, or just concerned individuals that want to help people to come on here and just check in with us every week for about 45 minutes, and we'll just talk about whatever issues that people want to talk about concerning foster care and adoption. We try to answer them together as a group. Hey, Kenny on Twitter, glad to see ya. If you guys want to give a shout out, how about everyone that's on here, if you want to say where you're from, like what state are you from? That would be great if we could see that, if you want to comment on that. But Jack's on here. It's good to see Jack on here. But everyone, as we keep going through this, if you want to comment what state you're from, we'll give a shout out to your state and give you a hey. So today, we are going to be talking some about the school system. And I guess I'll just set the ground rules before I do that. We are just doing this as a support system, as a way for caregivers and concerned individuals. Hey, to everyone on Instagram, we have folks joining in on Instagram. This is a time just for us to share, to ask questions, to talk about foster care and adoptive issues, to get support, and to let everyone know that we're in this together and you're not alone. So would really appreciate it if you would actually take some time right now while we're opening up and tag your friends on this so that they come and join the discussion, and just tell them to come and have some time. They deserve it. We're only going to take about 45 minutes to talk. 45 minutes, real short, just checking in. But we're not doing this as a way to, this isn't going to replace a doctor's notice, therapy, blah, 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 small print stuff. Please don't sue us. We're just trying to help. Transfiguring Adoption, definitely check out the website, transfiguringadoption.com. Today we want to talk about school issues, taking a look at schools, maybe getting into IEPs. I know that we're here in the second semester, and we've probably got, how many months do we have to go? I guess it's the end of February, so we have what?
March, April, May.
March, April, May.
Depending on where your school is at, kind of in their calendar.
So if you're watching
towards more into June, our kids get out like kind of.
They get out early
compared to a lot of schools.
Give a shout out if you're watching. What state are you watching from, and when is your school over? Like, when do your kids get out of school this year? Would love to know.
Our kids get out on May 22nd is a half day, I think.
May 22nd, it is.
But our high schooler graduates May 16th.
So it's like coming really fast. And again, we're coming out of Knoxville, Tennessee. So, but Knoxville will start earlier than probably most of you guys.
Usually start around like the 6th of August or somewhere around there.
It kind of makes it nice though, because we're able to go on vacation and do some things before all of you attack all the vacation spots, to enjoy vacation a little bit more before then. But yeah, let us know what state, comment down below what state you're watching from. We are watching live on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So they all have live chat capabilities, and we are doing our best to watch all of them. So if you want to do that and comment, also don't be afraid, this is your time. Margie and I are the co-founders of Transfiguring Adoption. And at this time, we're taking an hour every week just to do this. So to connect with you guys, to make sure that caregivers have a chance to connect, get support around the nation. But yeah, we're running off of your questions and what you want to talk about. So while we are going to talk about school issues, that's just what we have, so we're not sitting here in silence. But if you have something that you want to talk about, jump in and we will talk about that instead. And we are going to attack it as a group, not just as Margie and I being the experts on everything. So yeah, for sure. So we are going to talk about school issues. And I thought, while Margie's pulling up some things that Margie's really good with IEPs, which if you don't know what that is, that's an individualized education plan. A lot of kiddos from trauma will have one in the school system. And as a caregiver, if you don't know already, it's going to be your job to go to these meetings, maybe along with caseworkers and other people that are helping out with the child. It's going to be your job to go to these meetings at school and figure out if they're working for the child, to fight for the child's rights, to fight what's in the best interest of the child. And it seems to be a lot of discussion with foster parents because it's new territory, new water. Oh, Facebook is telling us that Facebook isn't allowing commenting. Oh no, we don't like that. But yeah, so Margie, can you tell us a little bit about an individualized education plan?
Okay. Just kind of caught me off guard. So an individualized education plan takes into consideration different child's needs. And it, like it says, it's individualized to that child. So there are different eligibility criteria for a child to get an IEP. The process usually starts, for those of you who may not know, either the school recognizes that there's a problem or the parents, caregivers have some concerns. Then they will call, at least in Tennessee, they call it an S team, which is a support team. And that's where everybody kind of states their concerns. And then from there, that's where you can request testing. Ours is okay, so Jack's kids are in year-round school, and I was actually thinking about that when you started talking about that. Year-round school is great because especially kids from trauma, kids with special needs tend to fall behind during the summer. So that year-round school, and actually Knoxville is trying to ease into year-round school. They would like to go to that. Oh, yeah, just the Facebook commenting just started to work, so that's good. But yeah, so the IEPs, like I said, there's different eligibility. So there can be medical reasons, there can be behavioral, all different, I forget what the different criteria are. But emotional disturbance is one that a lot of times kids from trauma can end up falling underneath. Then ADHD, attention deficit, those are common ones as well that we see. It might be something, a lot of times if it's just medical, like if they have epilepsy or some type of allergies or something, sometimes that'll fall under what's called a 504, which is another type of, it's not all the way, it's not an individualized education plan, but it just talks about what they need at school for their medical concerns.
Now, what's the difference between a 504? Hey, everyone joining on Twitter. It looks like Angela just joined us. Thanks for, or not on Twitter, on Instagram. I'm sorry. What's the difference between a 504 plan and an IEP?
I kind of just said.
Can you reiterate it for me?
Okay, so the 504 is generally not necessarily about. Like I said, it's usually more based on a medical need. Like a child has a physical disability and they need some kind of accommodation at school because of that disability, but they don't necessarily need any kind of accommodations, modifications of the schoolwork itself. It's just that they put in writing that they may need to. Gosh, I so was not prepared for this. Thanks for springing it on me. My brain's not working right now. So yeah, they might need to have an EpiPen, or they might need someone to help in terms of getting books to their classes because they're in a wheelchair or on crutches or something. It's more physical and less educational.
So the IEP is more enforceable too by the school system and stuff like that too. The 504 is just kind of like, okay, we have this on writing. We see we need to do this.
It's like an agreement, but yes, the IEP is more legally enforceable.
Like so if the IEP, if they're not following the IEP, then that's when you could go in and say, hey, the school system's not following the IEP. We're going to do something about it. And legal action could take place against.
Yeah, you can go up the chain within the school system. And then if you're not getting results, you can take legal action.
A 504 is kind of like a handshake.
Yeah.
Like it's a good idea and everyone's kind of like, yes, this needs to happen, and you shake hands on it, but there are no witnesses.
But it's
There's
in
nothing.
writing, and so
Right.
like we have one kiddo that just has a 504 and they're getting ready to leave one school to progress on to the next level of schooling. And that 504 was developed as something in writing, so that would travel with the child to the next school, so that was all just in writing and documented. So the next school could take into consideration those plans for the child at school.
So does anyone else have, I guess, does anyone else have any kids that have IEPs in the classroom, or do you have kids with, I guess, IEPs or 504s? Do you have any kids with that? And what does that look like for your kid to have that? Hey, Galen's here. Hey, Galen, on Instagram. What does that look like, though, to have that? I guess, I don't know if anyone has those. For our kids, we have
we have quite a gamut. We have 3 with IEPs, and they all look very different. One of our kiddos is in a program that is completely life skills based. So the modifications, the individualized education plan has things like that child is not subject to state testing. That child really doesn't take testing at all.
And here's one thing that I want to talk about too that we have in on our IEPs also, which I know some people are in the education field that might be watching and stuff like that. And again, welcome to everyone that just joined us on whatever social media you're on. We're actually going to be talking about education and foster care and adoption this episode. So Jack says, I had an IEP which allowed me longer test times, isolated rooms for a test. Yes, and that's
very common.
That is really common. One thing that we,
I think all of 2 of our kids have lengthened time for testing.
And one thing
or different settings as well.
And one thing that Margie and I personally have put in for IEPs, which sometimes we take it off and sometimes we continue to have it, is we have in the IEP that homework is not going to be done at home. And I know that's kind of that's a weird issue for some people. But we just really think that as caregivers, our kids coming from trauma have never learned how to form healthy attachments, healthy relationships. There are just so many.
And this is on a child-by-child basis.
It is on a child-by-child basis.
You know, if you have kids who are extremely behind and homework is a huge stressor, you know, we found we were getting children older, and when they've just moved into your house and homework is a huge battle, and you're spending the entire night helping that, trying to help them complete a task that they're unable to complete, it created this huge stress, and the attachment, there was no time for bonding and attachment. So we said, hey, teachers, this isn't working right now. You know, we need to have some time. School needs to be school and family needs to be family. And we've had teachers be very understanding of that. We even had a teacher this year talking about one of our children saying that it's hard enough for the child to make it through the day of school that at home, there was just no reason to expect, particularly any kind of homework that's just extra practice or, you know, quote, busy work. They continue to do some projects, some things that are in addition that aren't just practice.
But that's something that's really important to us, is just that our kids, when they come home, we're not fighting with them over homework, that we're able to be mom and dad and we're able to love on them and have that time, and we don't have to do all that. One thing that I don't know, a lot of caregivers, I don't know if you realize this, and if you're an educator and you're watching, chime in on this, and let me know if I'm right or wrong, but most educators I talk with have never been trained in how to deal with trauma with kids in the classroom. That's something that I just, as a foster parent, I just figured the teachers went through university courses, they were certified. And so dealing with trauma is something that they knew how to deal with. So I was constantly going to the elementary school and I was asking the teachers advice for different things before I suddenly realized, and I finally asked one, I said, so have you guys ever taken classes on it? And anything with this? And they said no. Like, no, like they've never, like they're as caregivers, sometimes I feel like we don't think we get training for how to deal with trauma-based issues, and just realize that the teachers aren't getting anything. So and
that's beginning to change, but I think I was most shocked when I was in an IEP meeting, just 1 or 2 years ago, and I was talking about PTSD, and the school psychologist looked at me and said, yeah, but how does PTSD affect them at school? And it was just one of those jaw drop moments when I'm like, the psychologist doesn't understand how PTSD can affect every single waking moment of a child's life. A child who is so stuck in fight, flight, or freeze that their rational thought, their executive, all their reasoning, you know, how all the science, I was like, I could come in here and give her loads and stacks of the science behind why PTSD, how it affects every moment at school and how it impairs learning. And that's something that's just kind of coming into the field of education. In recent years, there's been lawsuits of, you know, kind of started out in California against school districts for not servicing children with PTSD. There's work being done out on the East Coast, up north, at like Harvard and such, trying to help inform the education community to be more trauma informed and how that impacts the classroom. Just on and on, but it's really vital that our education system becomes more and more informed about what trauma is, how it affects the classroom, how it affects learning, different ways to help, because as parents, we've learned that parenting children from trauma is so much different than typical parenting. A lot of typical parenting strategies don't work. And it's the same with education in the classroom. There are a lot of typical classroom strategies that do not work for the traumatized child. So
one thing I guess I wanted to ask everyone that's watching is what do you do with teachers before you send a child into the classroom? I'm talking like if you have a newly adoptive or foster kiddo, like what do you expect the teacher to understand? What do you expect them to know? What questions does everyone watch it? And if you're not watching this live, I would love for you to leave a comment on whatever social media you're watching. I'd love for you to leave a comment, because you never know what you might think, oh, my comment doesn't mean anything, or everyone knows this, but you never know. Like we have some new caregivers that are watching, and your answer might literally rock their world. But what do you tell teachers, or what do you make sure teachers know when they're entering your kid's entering the classroom for the first time? What do you tell a teacher about your child? I know we make sure that they just understand that they're usually our kids are emotionally half their age. And that's one thing that and obviously we don't do this in front of a bunch of other people. We do this in private. Like we take a teacher aside, or we make sure we just say, hey, you know, here's kind of some of the kids' past history. They were exposed to a lot of trauma at a very young age. It's rewired their brain. You might see that they're acting emotionally half their age at points. And maybe
some of the things that trigger them, or some of the ways that the teacher can help them cope, strategies that we've been able to successfully use at home that they could also incorporate in the classroom. And if it's something that they don't allow in their classroom, like 2 of our children really, really respond well to chewing gum. Like it really helps them calm and helps them function better. But gum is not always allowed in the classroom. No. So if gum's not allowed, what's some kind of workaround? What are some alternatives?
Exactly. So yeah, I would love to hear what other people tell their the teachers when they go into the classroom, because that's something that we actually get asked a lot. Like again, it's one of those things where I think we just all figure that everyone, like the teachers are just trained on this and they know everything about it, and they really don't. Like again, like Margie said, it's changing, but for the most part, they really don't know. They just haven't been trained in it. And especially if a teacher is new out of school and they haven't had a child even yet, wow, this is a kid from a traumatic place is really going to just turn their world upside down, and they've got to know how to address it, because They just got to know that it's different. They can't just discipline a kid and expect to get good results. They've got to know how to diffuse the situation and different things like that. Anyways, one thing that, again, one of our go-tos, one of our publishers, again, they're not paying me to say this. We review books on our website. We have not checked out the books that we reviewed on our website. We have books for grown-ups that we review. We also have children's books, and we review them based on how well they're going to help your foster or adoptive family. And we do it from 1 to 5 hoots. One of the publishing companies that sends us books is Jessica Kingsley Publishing. They're out of the UK, but they also have branches here in the United States. And we still grade them fairly and everything, but most of the time when we grade stuff from them, and they get high marks. Like they turn out some really great material for the most part. I'm actually kind of surprised when we get something from them that I have to grade low. But one thing that they sent us that we have not looked through yet is Becoming an Adoption-Friendly School. Oh, don't know if you guys can see that. Becoming an Adoption-Friendly School, like YouTube and Twitter and now Instagram see that. But we have not taken a look at this yet, but it says it's a whole school resource for supporting children who have experienced trauma or loss with complimentary downloadable material. It's by Dr. Emma Gore-Langton and Catherine Boy. Again, it looks like it's out of the UK, but it sounds like it's going to be phenomenal. And I think more and more of these books are coming out as, and I think that just goes to show that caregivers, we're struggling with how to deal with the school system and stuff like that. And we need the teachers to understand more and more what our children are going through.
There's also a book that I previously reviewed on our website called Help for Billy by Heather Forbes. And that's a great book to hand off if you have a child who's gone through trauma, to hand off. Sorry, go ahead, you read.
Real quick, I'll stop Margie. So Jack says, one thing I've done was make sure all teachers have my email so they could shoot me an email if they expect any problems in the classroom or experience any problems in the classroom, so I can help correct the problem sooner rather than later. That way the teacher and I can break, and that's funny that it did that because that's where your comment broke. So teacher and I can break the bad habits sooner and quicker. Yeah, I think close communication has always really helped us in situations with our kiddos, especially if the child realizes that we are in regular contact with the teacher. That kind of cuts off some of the craziness, nonsense. And I think that goes across the board, even with as foster caregivers, that goes with your caseworker, the professionals whatever professionals are in your life. You just need to be upfront and you need to be honest with them. I think for the most part, our experience has been that we can be pretty transparent with people because they're human too, and they realize our intentions are on the up and up. And so we can tell them when we mess up and stuff like that. Yeah.
So Help for Billy is particularly good if you have teachers who have not experienced working with kids from foster care or going through adoption, because it takes, the reason it's called Help for Billy, there are 2 hypothetical children in the story, in the book. It's not a story. It compares a typical child who has had regular upbringing, nurturing environment
from foster care or going through adoption.
So it compares his experiences to a hypothetical child, Billy, who
the writer.
So Billy has had traumatic experiences and is going through school, having difficulties, and it explains how trauma impacts him at school, how it affects his learning, and gives practical solutions and stuff. So it's a good thing to hand off to teachers who have not experienced that, to help them understand your child. The other thing I want to make sure everybody knows is I've got a blog on our website that's called IEP and 504 Suggestions for Children Affected by Trauma. where I go into this a little bit more and list out several suggestions that you can actually present for when you're in those meetings and you want to help your child, you don't necessarily know how. Some of these suggestions will help you navigate those meetings, give you some ideas of things you can request that can be done for your child to help them.
Very cool. And yeah, like I would just love to know and hear from people and just see like what are other things that you tell people, like what do you tell the teachers when you go in there? Jack was just saying that he has quick communication with them, which again I think is really important. I mean, just even with our last foster placement that we had, it was just neat it was easy making decisions when all the professionals understood what was going on and everyone was in agreement with moving forward. And I think there's some real power there when everyone is in agreement. And but I think not everyone can make an agreement when they don't understand what's going on. Because I think that's where a lot of maybe like, if you're having conflict with your teachers at school, I think sometimes maybe there's the conflict happening because they don't understand what's going on and they're trying to come at it and educate it from a normal way when you can't do that with kids from traumatic pasts. So
another thing is finding, oftentimes there's advocates available that you can find to kind of help you, because a lot of times it's just that we don't speak the same language. You know, I've heard several stories of friends who have requested something for the child, but they didn't use like the correct terminology. And it was kind of a, no, that's not possible. And then they found out like they just didn't use the right words.
Right.
And so some of it's just, if you have someone that you can go to who knows the system well, in Tennessee, there's Tennessee Voices for Children, that you can contact them and an advocate will link up with you. I've worked with advocate before, just getting on the phone and saying, hey, this is our kiddo. This is what we're seeing. What can we suggest? What can we request from the school? And they can kind of help you navigate some of those legalities and understanding what potential resources there are for your child that you can ask for.
I think one thing too, like that I want to talk about too with school issues is I know that a lot of times one of the big mentors that we have is Dr. Karen Purvis, who passed away, what was it, 2 years ago? And she always talked about lowering the bar for success. And just understanding that our kids maybe are, I mean, they have some real issues going on. We all do, but they have some real things that they're fighting here with trauma. It's rewired their brains. And I think when we first started fostering, I think one thing that we had, you know, like you always tell your kids, like, we expect you to go to college. We expect you to do, like, you know, you're shooting for the stars. You're like, you're teaching these kids to expect this stuff.
You kind of think like that was what was expected of us.
Right.
You know, we valued education. And the more and more we've worked with our kiddos and other kiddos that have been through our home and working with other parents, you know, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And if they graduate learning how, and they can read and do math, and they've graduated, but they can't hold a relationship. They can't have a conversation. They have no respect for authority or don't know how to follow directions. Some of these basic things that we learn at home, then they're not going to be successful. And sometimes that stuff takes a back seat. Addition and subtraction may take a back seat to just learning how to be in a relationship, learning how to function, learning how to have a conversation or work together. Some of those things that they're going to have for adult life.
Hey, Kyle. Yeah, and I mean, I don't think, I mean, honestly, you might have already said this while I was attending to something on social media here, but who cares if they have an A, if they're on A honor roll, because if they can't hold a relationship, when they get that great job because they've graduated from Harvard with this great GPA, they're not going to be able to hold a relationship, and their employer isn't going to want them to work there anyways because they can't hack it. So I don't know. I think that's counterintuitive for a lot of us. Like, what do you guys think about that? Is it okay to ask your kids not to have them do homework at home? Is it okay? I think it's counterintuitive too. Like, I know we at one time had to, like, a kiddo came home, like, we really were taking this seriously. We weren't watching grades, or we were focusing on relationships, and a kid brought home a failing grade, and we just had to say, like, they said, "Aren't you mad?" And we said, "No, but we're sad, because that's, you know," like, it's not like we ignored it or approved of it. We just said, it's just sad. That's we know you're capable of more. We know that you can do better. And this is going to, this kind of affects your future. Like, this will affect next year, like whether you have to do this class over again. But at the same time, we didn't get upset about it.
Yeah, we've just had a lot to do a lot of boundaries, like school is school and home is home. And even with behavior at school and stuff, like I've had parents recently talking about just the fact that if their child is misbehaving at school and their teacher is expecting them to punish them at home for something that happened at school, and particularly some of these children with significant special needs, they can't even, if there's not a consequence immediately, there's no connection. So if we even punish them at home, it's not going to have any effect. And a lot of times what people don't understand is that with children who've come from trauma, that cause and effect connection is not there.
Yeah, and Kyle is saying that when they fail, they crash. They'll crash much harder. And I think that's true. I think that just adds to the agitation of it all. And I think it's like what we were talking about earlier, it's why our teachers need to be educated on trauma a lot more, because they need to know how to handle situations at school. And kind of what you're saying, so that if there is that boundary, they can handle the situation at school, and then we don't have to handle it when they get home, because they can get home and they can tell us, well, the teacher, blah, 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 like said this or did that. And we can just say, that doesn't sound like it was the right way to handle it, and move on. And we don't have to punish. We don't have to handle it, because it's already been handled at school. But,
well, and like I was saying, the cause and effect connection. If you think about it, children who've been through trauma, you know, if they had a neglectful or an abusive parent, you know, maybe one day they cried and they got ignored. Another time they cried and they got a bottle. Another time they cried and they got smacked. You know, the same thing was happening, but it always had different effects. And so they never made, their brain never made the connection between the cause and effect, that I did this and this happened as a result. It causes something in their brain to not connect early on. So if you've had a child who's had trauma, they often cannot understand cause and effect, even older children. So having a consequence much later, they don't understand that.
Well, I would love to hear from other people, even if you're, like I said, you're not watching this live, if you just had to catch us after we had the live discussion. Definitely, I would love for you to comment and just tell us, what do you tell teachers when your child is entering the classroom? Again, because this is a huge topic where a lot of parents, especially newer foster parents, well, like even seasoned ones, are always wondering, what do I tell the teacher? What can I tell the teacher? And stuff like that going into the classroom, because we all want our kids to be successful. And obviously we're all seeing that we have to parent differently, so the teachers are going to have to treat things a little differently in the classroom too. But yeah, please leave us a comment and let us know. We are at half an hour in, and so I'm just going to tell you about a few things we have going on with Transfiguring Adoption. I'll tell you about.
I was just thinking earlier, we were talking about functioning at like emotionally half their age, and I was just thinking about how that impacts just daily little things. But just today, I had an experience where an older child, you know, like little kids, they like never admit that they're sick and they just go, go, go. We have a kid, I'm sick, I've been sick. And there's a child in our house who has the exact same symptoms and totally is 100% sure they're not ill.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like that little kid, like, I'm not tired, I'm not tired, I'm not sick, I'm not sick. And it's just kind of funny.
Well, be sure, again, leave us your comments. We still have time for questions. If you have any questions or things that you want to talk about, if it's a big topic that we can't really get into completely, we'll talk about it next Monday. which this caregiver check-in is the reason we call it Monday Caregiver Check-in is it's always on Monday, and it's at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we will talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So if there's something that you want us to talk about or tackle, please get it to us, comment, whatever. We are watching, we are listening. One thing that I wanted to let everyone know about once again is we do have our Universal Studios trip in Orlando, Florida that is coming up in October. The reason I'm telling everyone about it now is because there are only 8 spots that are available for foster and adoptive families. So you can reserve your family spot.
That's 8 families, not
8 families,
people.
right.
So
8 families are going to be going on this trip. You can reserve your spot. Go to transfiguringadoption.com/vacation. You're going to want to do this because this is going to give you a great opportunity to make positive memories with your family, to have that big family vacation that you've always wanted to take them on, but not sure how you would do it just because of trauma behaviors and different things. Transfiguring Adoption will have 4 different staff members that are going to be going on this trip. And they're just going to be attending to your needs and helping you make it through the park, be watching and monitoring and just helping you navigate the parks. It's about $1,000 cheaper, depending on the size of your family, to go on this trip. And you will be getting other goodies along the way. So it's definitely worth it. You're getting a lot of extras. Again, it's transfiguringadoption.com/vacation. And I believe the deposit for that is $400. And you can work with our awesome travel agency on how to make payments and different things going toward it, but it's going to be in October. Don't wait too long because the trip will fill up and you'll miss your opportunity this year. The other thing I'd wanted to let everyone know about is we have Sweet Dreams Nightlight Drive that is happening right now. Get your nightlights in. We're waging war on nighttime terrors in foster kids. So if you would like to get some nightlights in, we will hand them out to agencies and they will get them to other foster parents so that they can help kids. And you can check out on our website, again at transfiguringadoption.com, for more information on Sweet Dreams Nightlight Drive. Do you have anything else that you needed to let people know about? I don't think I did either. Thank you so much for everyone for watching. It's been amazing to talk with everyone. Thank you for everyone that's been watching on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We'll be here again next Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please join us. Tell your friends to join us so that we can grow this and have more conversations. We hope that we're helping you to nurture or grow your foster or adoptive family. Goodbye, YouTube.